frozen right now, bro.
Who's frozen? Am I frozen?
No, now you're fine, dude. Actually, I can actually see you in actual real time.
Well, it's beautiful. See, everything worked itself out.
You were right, dude.
I've been filming podcasts for 2.5 hours now. I don't know, man. I did the other show, which, by the way, if you're watching this, the Uncut Wrestling Podcast with the Ace Nick White and Robbie Cutthroat. I ponied the wrong way for everybody, but who gives a shit? Man, it's, by the way, best intro in podcasts.
TJ Vegas, dude.
TJ Vegas, our boy, hashtag the Indie Movement. Go check out at the Indie Movement, at JPF Podcast. They're doing great things over on the Just Plain Filthy podcast. As of this week, you might also want to check out The Wrestling Gimmick, which is also on Anchor, Spotify, YouTube. It's a show that I host with a friend named Randy Cresswell. We talked about Raw, NXT, Impact Wrestling, but this is the Indie podcast. This is where we have fun. This is where we talk the good shit. And this week's guest is a guy I've known forever. 10 years, maybe 12 years. Robbie, you good, by the way? I didn't even ask you how you're doing.
I know, man. What the fuck, dude? No, I'm doing.
Dude, I've been talking for 2 hours. All I know is to talk at this point.
Autopilot. I hear you, dude. We're having we're having some technical glitches, but we're gonna rise above it.
Yeah, apparently video is shit on my end. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry. It looks really good on my StreamYard though, so I don't know. Anyway, but hopefully the audio is good. So when you listen to this on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, hopefully I sound great. That's all that really matters to me. I don't know.
You got that kind of voice. You got that kind of voice that always sounds great to me, Nick.
I got a voice and a face for radio, man. What can I tell you? But
speaking of faces, though, we are missing one today, dude. Franchise out this week.
Franchise out this week. I don't know, man. He's off doing franchise things, TikToking his life away. Dude, that guy's super busy, man. He's got a fucking crazy good job. So good for him. He'll be back at some point, maybe next week with our guest next week, who's going to be killer. But anyway, this week's guest is going to be a ton of fun. A guy I love to talk to, a guy I've known for, like I said, 10, 12 years. I've watched this guy come up from being trained by Dutch Mantel to being part of Team IOU, to being a member of the Cardis, and now running the Crux Wrestling School. This guy is, if you're a fan of Southern Indie Wrestling, you know his name. You know what an inspiration he is to Southern Indie Wrestling in 2021, man. And I think this intro video, look, we put over TJ a lot. This video touched my heart because it shows me how far this man has come. Plus, I'm in it, so I can't be mad. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest this week, Kerry Awful.
I deserve praise just like everybody else. And whether you want to give it to me or I have to take it, the lights are going to be on me.
Oh, he stuffed him with the...
It's working out for him. Oh, just talk.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, man.
I legit get emotional for you when I watch that.
It's really cool. It got me. I've known TJ for a while. He's done like video clips. He like added me on social media one time, and I was just like, "Oh wow, you think I'm an okay wrestler? That's awesome."
Yeah, dude. He has been super excited about this all week. I know he's going to watch or listen, whichever one he does. But he told me when I told him it was you this week, because I was giving like the week's notice to make the videos, and he's like, dude, the Cardis were like the first team I ever reached out to on social media to be like, hey, can I do something for you guys?
The answer was always yes for that. Anybody who has ever gave a shit enough about me to ever like you gotta think like doing clips and stuff for people, like liking a tweet seems like a task for like people today, or an Instagram photo.
Shit.
And like when somebody like takes time of their day with like a video editor, time ripping the matches, finding the clips, or you know what I'm saying? Like, that's wild to me. Like, that's like the coolest part about pro wrestling is like making something that other people like resonates with them, but then they're like, man, I want to make art too, and their own like mediums of it, like highlight videos or GIFs or whatever the equivalent is. It's so cool, and TJ's very talented. He's still doing music, right, and rapping some.
Yeah, man. Kill Murray. Check out at Kill Murray 603 on Twitter. Or definitely just check out the Kill Murray page on Facebook. He's on Apple and Spotify too.
I always look at my algorithm every now and then, and it'll be like something for Kill Murray. So I'm like, oh yeah, TJ. You know?
Dude, TJ's on point, dude. That's that dude has been one of my best friends. It's amazing, and you'll know this from wrestling, how weird your friend group becomes. Like people that you've never met in person are like the dudes you're closest to. Sometimes, like fucking Robbie lives on the other side of the fucking country, and I talk to that guy every day.
There's like tons. Like, it's weird because like I didn't realize that time had gone by so fast. I knew I was getting older, but I didn't realize like how like time didn't exist to me until I had like recent changes in my life. And it just, like in an instance, it went from like this like weird like punk rock experience like every weekend in a car somewhere between like 2 to 4 days of the week while holding down a job, while training on top of that, while doing your own social media editing and networking and trying to get booked and like juggling all this crazy shit. And then I just like stopped and I looked in the mirror. I was like, oh my God, like I am old.
When the fuck did I become an adult? What the hell?
I'm in my mid-30s. Shit. And that video, like I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, it's like watching like a Wonder Years like clip show highlight in the best way. And very few things like make me feel that way. I really seek to feel things when I watch wrestling. And sometimes like now that I'm like into this like other side of the roller coaster, proverbial roller coaster, right? I'm on this like last tail end of my ride. I like look for that kind of like promo or vignette or match, or like I would call it like I don't know how much of the like curtain do we pull back here while talking about wrestling? Oh
yeah, it's
the moment where you're so like just encapsulated in this like moment. Yeah. And you just like time freezes and you're like zoned in. Like Tremont's promo against Onita, the original one that John Carlo did, set to catch up. I showed it to my significant other, my wife, at the time. This is years ago, and I was like, "This is about wrestling. I know you don't like it, but just watch this and tell me like what do you think or feel afterwards." And she just goes, "That was cool," and I was like, "Fucking right."
Yeah, those are the moments, man, when like you show it to people that don't like wrestling, and they're like, "Oh, yeah. I just saw something."
Yeah, when you can touch the non-believers, you know you've tapped into something.
Yeah, absolutely. Wrestling's like become this like super beautiful, weird like anomaly to me. Yeah. I like it used to keep me up all night, and like I joked about it, but it became like self-fulfilling and like drove me crazy because like there's so many facets of it that you can digest, from like going around everywhere, hearing stories, or like learning under these like strange people at like conversations at dinner tables or cars or restaurants or locker rooms or whatever. And like the more I learned about it, the more I saw like these weird nuancy things that like only exist in it, like being able to like get a whole stadium of people to like cry out of joy or happiness or sadness or whatever. Those genuine moments, and then like it makes you like almost rediscover wrestling like all over again. And I get to share those experiences now because I used to never think it was enough, and then I see videos like TJ's and I'm like, oh my God, I've lived such a rewarding life.
Like, dude, that's the thing, man. Like like I said before I brought you on, like I've watched you progress. Like this is totally not the way we normally do this, but I'm having more fun on this. Like I've watched you progress from like, you know, what the fuck is a Kerry Awful was legitimately the first thing I ever said when I saw your name on the card. Like, what the fuck is a Kerry Awful? And then watching, you know, original heel Kerry Awful, and then A Boy and His Dog, and then the Cardis, and everything that you've become now to being this guy whose name, I'm not saying this to like blow you. I hope you don't think I'm doing it, but like, this guy whose name is spoken like fucking reverent tones now, man. Like people talk about you the way they talk about like some of these indie guys, like they talk about you, like they talk about Fox, and they talk about the great trainers of the day. You know,
I know. It's fucking mind blowing to me I don't acknowledge it. I mean, fuck. I don't have a high opinion about myself, anyways. I'm constantly somebody that is like self-chastising. Like I'm not working hard enough. I'm not being the best Kerry I can be. And no matter like what strides I make, I wake up every day, like today and every day after today. It's being like, how am I going to be better today, and not feel like such a fuck up.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, fuck. I named myself Kerry Awful as a wrestler. Like I could have named myself like Johnny Big Arms or some shit. Like fucking
That's Robbie's gimmick.
Kerry Cute Face, you know, and I didn't. I named myself Kerry Awful. I remember on those original posts when I was like doing on like the old Mid-South like message board or whatever.
Yeah.
They like Kerry Awful, goddamn right, you know. Like, fucking what a compliment to that guy, you know. I wanted to be a wrestler so fucking bad, and I had this like weird like validation that I needed, and I don't know. I don't have it now. I get all the validation I need in the real world, but then my life was like so shitty, and like living in my car to like do wrestling or to like fucking make ends meet or whatever. And I had like, I just thought I would be a wrestler, and then I died like young or something. And then now to be where I'm at in life and to like look back like, fuck dude, I had heroes, like legit heroes of mine, and I got to have matches with them. I was telling, like, I watch wrestling some now. I watch AEW Dynamite. I watch a lot of NXT and Dynamite mostly. That's what I have time for, and I always try to make time for Ring of Honor when I can. It's just hard because, you know, you have so many responsibilities the older you get. And so I try to watch the stuff that makes me happy, when that's normally watching, like, people I've met over the years that are, like, world champs. Or like people, like I had like little fractions of help or advice that when people were like, fuck them, they suck. And I was like, no, fuck you, you're wrong, they're awesome. And just like watching them still to this day do some of those like little inside tricks. It's like, it's crazy. Like I feel like I always wanted to make a difference. And I feel like now that I've like took the time to slow down, took the time away from wrestling, because I took almost like a 2-year hiatus. I somehow got in the PWI a couple of years ago or last year with like the least matches I had ever had in my life, and most definitely the least amount of wins. I like doubled that shit this year and didn't even get a fucking nod. But I got to be in the PWI, so fucking YOLO. You know,
dude. I mean, it's this year was different with the PWI. I know I'm running all over you, Robbie. I'm sorry.
No, man. I'm enjoying this conversation, man. Seriously.
This year was cool with the PWI too, though, because it was so much indie talent. And then where they made it intergender this year, there was like, it was so weird seeing like, normally you look at the PWI and everybody's like bitching because, my spot's so low. Oh, I didn't make it. And it was like everybody was celebrating this year the PWI.
It was
Trish Adora and AJ Gray and Lee Moriarty are all top fucking 50. And
AJ's my dude, man. Like AJ, I have a funny story about meeting AJ. Yeah, I was wrestling in a AWE at the time, and someone had had like gifted a couple of things from our match or whatever, and I got this like notification from this guy who was like, someone from Tennessee got gift. Oh my god! And I was like, LOL, whatever. And the next week I saw him at Yukon Jackson, Tullahoma at the Gypsy Joe Arena. And I was like, holy shit, you tweeted me a week ago. This is fucking awkward. Hey, I'm Kerry. And we became friends, and he was learning on the go. And you know, like there were times AJ used to meet me at my house, crash at my house, drive the car for me. And I would just do this, you know, just be like, here's how wrestling, listen to this great shit of what you can do with it. Oh my God, wrestling's so easy. Holy fuck, it's just this. And but AJ is like, so like he'll never like he'll say he's mid to the day he'll die. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world. And I those little text messages and tweets that you get from them being like, I get what you mean by one shoulder tackle can get him. And it's like, now you're getting it. And then seeing him last year, he was the highest ranked indie wrestler in the PWI, I think, for one of them. And seeing that, it's just like, god dang, the pride. I don't know. Wrestling was like at its worst for me when I felt like I had to get signed, like I had to validate it by doing that. And you know, it made me miserable as a person to be around, as a person to talk to, as a friend, as a trainer, as a real life human and stuff. And the pride that I get now from seeing these guys succeed, it fills that need for me. You know, and that's why I teach wrestling now. Like, I used to only have like a couple students at a time and really try to like just hammer in like the guys who wanted it, that wanted to be in the ring, that wanted to train, that wanted to be in the car, that wanted to figure out the big secrets of pro wrestling. And when you see those guys are changing the world, I mean, AJ Gray for the culture, like he's making cultural impacts that transcend wrestling. Effie, when I saw Effie in Florida at Fest, I said, "What are you doing? Isolated here in Florida, you will drown here. You are a bird and are meant to fly." And to see what he's accomplished, it's the coolest feeling. It's the coolest feeling in the world. And like, I don't know. You know what it was like to be a Tennessee wrestler. You know what I mean? And you know what it's like to be a Southern wrestler, and you know what it's like to know you have good ideas or to know you have talent and be told, "Fuck you," you know, do this. A random moment in time, not to like pull too much back, but like I got a call. I was talking to one of my students the other day, and Dylan McQueen was with him for whatever reason, picked up the phone, and I was talking to him when I was at the GCW 24-hour live stream. I wrestled, but I was up there just like, that was the first time I'd been around a lot of people I hadn't seen in years because of just how like life took us with COVID and like growing up and everything. And I told him before he wrestled Ashton Starr, who's another one of those people I remember taking time with at shows and being like, "You're going to fucking get a bad reputation if you don't start fucking acting right. Like, it's okay, but don't do this. Do this. People will understand that," you know? They had a match at GCW or whatever, and I had a brief conversation with Dylan, and then I told him I had heard so much, because when it comes to Tennessee wrestling, anybody who wants to get out of it, I know. I've done it. I did my research with the guys who did it before us, people like Christian Haim or Tank, you know what I mean, or people who made money in wrestling, people who were on those super indie shows. You know, there's like a process, and we were always deprived of that knowledge out here. You know, my goal, I made a promise to professional wrestling, to the business, right? That's my wrestling gimmick, right? I sold myself to the business. I made a fucking solemn promise to it that I would take everything I learned from that and make Tennessee better in one way or the other, you know? Make wrestling better in one way or the other. Make tag team wrestling better one way or the other. And that's all fucking subjective. But when you stop and you get these text messages or tweets about shit like it works, or this is changing, or people are reacting, or we're selling merch, or we're getting booked, it's like, fuck, it might have been a lot of sacrifice, but it was sacrifice well invested to let people experience wrestling the way it should be, I guess.
Yeah.
How often does it come about that you're instructing a new wrestler, new to the business, and maybe you see potential in them, and all of a sudden they're like, what you see them doing, you give them the advice that you should do the exact opposite of what you're doing, or you need to change this up. And you get these guys and they got big egos, and they maybe their mindset is like, "Hey, I need to just keep doing what I'm doing." And you're telling them, no. How do you deal with personalities like that in this business when somebody thinks they're doing it right, and you with your expertise knows that there's a better way?
So I think, Robbie, for me, it would depend on what phase of my wrestling career you would have asked me at. Mm-hmm. The way that things got settled when I was a wrestler, I got into wrestling late in my life, in my mid to early 20s, by wrestling standards at that time. Most people are 18, 20, whatever. And I also was like a fat, little, dumpy, self-conscious, weak, no confidence having scrub. Wrestling was different for me. My experience and journey is unique to mine. So like when I talk about wrestling, it has to be under that. It's like my experience with it. So I was like getting my ass kicked by people, and professional wrestling is supposed to be portrayed as that or whatever. And it's not like an agreed upon like duel between civilized men. It's you're like a year in the business, and you know that you're only supposed to work, do certain things at certain times, and you're waiting for cues and all this shit. And these guys who are like, can't fucking work, can't fucking draw, are beating your ass. They're not letting you wrestle or be the character you want to be. And so that, Kerry, when somebody had a disagreement, first it would try to get talked through like a civilized adult. And in Tennessee, that never happened. So they would get into the ring and they would have two options. Let's do wrestling or let's fight. And, let's see how it shakes out. And regardless of afterwards, it's business and we'll be friends or coworkers or acquaintances or strangers. Now it's hard because I want to help the world. My whole life, it's like the equivalent of that when people say, like, do you ever see a puppy on the side of the road and I just pick them up and take them home? Well, then you have 600 stray dogs in your house, you know, and it sucks and it sucks. It's just like having a child, you know, like I can teach them what to do as if this is a profession, and you try to do that. And you have to, you know, be understanding of the fact that like these are fucking, in some cases, are still late teenagers, early adults, or they're grown adults, and so they should fucking either take the advice, you know, they have the choice to use what I say and either do it or don't. If they do something they're not supposed to, dude. I live in Tennessee. I talk with people all over the U.S. and all over the world sometimes, with people trying to seek advice or certain weird things that I'm known for, because I'm mostly just known for being a weird guy that has weird views on wrestling that end up being accurate or working. I'm known for it. We used to joke about it. That's why we have all that X-Men fucking you know, kind of like influence or comic book Batman influences, because it felt like Batman and Robins with me and a couple of my students, or it felt like Charles Xavier and the X-Men. And I can bring them in and show them how to use these like raw mutant powers that they have in professional wrestling. But whether they like use that shit to defend the world or whether they use that shit to try to fucking take it over, I can't control that, because I'm not a fucking fiction writer. I'm just a fucking human being that teaches wrestling to the best of my ability. You know, those cats, like the younger kids now, I mean, I used to always like run up to tell people they were special. You know, I used to. It's like I can see it. I can see what people's upsides are. I can see how they can make money. I can see, like, sometimes I don't want to say a cap because I can't see a cap. People defy caps all the time. That's what wakes me up in the morning, is trying to, you know, do the impossible on some weird thing. Yeah. And they're just weird, man. The way I handle it is if something's said to me, I just say, like, yo, like, what the fuck is this? You know, like, I have shit I have to do in the real world. Like, if they want advice on pro wrestling, I can give it to them, and they can hit me up through my wrestling school. That's how I handle it now. I have to be in tune with reality, and for me, that means like deleting. I manually deleted 1,000 people off my Facebook the other day. Because I'm thinking, you know, like, what am I sharing? I don't know these people. I don't fucking know them. These like wrestlers, even. You know what I'm saying? You can be in a locker room with someone that's like, dude, could you imagine going to Subway and getting a meatball sub? And some guy goes, a nice haircut. And you're like, yeah, sick hair too. How do you do that? And you say, I got a school. I got a school about doing my hair. And then, like, you add him on Facebook, and this motherfucker is like having conversations about you or using your name in conversations because they're such great fucking friends with you. And it's like, bro, I've had like 3 fucking Facebook messages, you know, with some of these people trying to give them advice that they've asked it, because if someone asks my opinion or my advice, you know, I used to give it to them. Now they have to pay me money.
There you go, man. People trying to rub the genie.
Yeah, I've been giving out milk for free for years, and it's not worth the emotional heartbreak of it all, you know, or the stress. Yeah. You know, life's stressful enough for me. And that's why, like, I used to be like known for being like a social media guy. I studied it. I study analytics and marketing, actually. And so I believe that social media as a platform, if delivered in like the proper medium, is the most accessible way to digest wrestling in the most simplest forms. Right. So, like, you know why for example, I don't put links to matches on Twitter. If it's under 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you know, I have to live stream it if people are going to see it. So how do you present that to make it more popular? Well, I'm going to treat it like it's a wrestling show, and really it's just a fucking fan cam on an iPhone, and me and my buddies doing our best improv night of SNL. You know, like putting a camera up, and we're all basically jamming music in the garage with instruments instead of being on stage performing. Sorry, long-winded. It's like Russian dolls with me. We'll get back to whatever the original topic was. It's today. I'm old. I feel like Abe Simpson. And the world's passed me by. What I thought was hip is not hip anymore. So what I'm going to try to do is influence as many people to do as much cool shit that's good and fun and have, like, I don't know. When I think about my time in wrestling, even at its worst, it was like a fucking weird Judd Apatow movie to me. Or comic book, and I hope that with the advice I give people, or with the training that I give people, or by showing with my examples in wrestling to people with like stories or moves or matches or moments, that these guys can enrich their wrestling and maybe have a wild, zany time that they can write about to their friends or family about, you know, crazy shit. Like for me, I was in the Hardy Boys Halloween deal in my Kerry Awful outfit and fucking eating catering and shit, just being like, yo, sick. You know, this is fucking, I never had WrestleMania, but for a fat kid from Tennessee that was named himself Awful, yeah, pretty fun. I want all my kids to have that. So like 2 of my students were in the PWI Top 500 this year. And it was so cool because I see him like Jaden Newman right now is doing all kinds of cool shit. O'Shea Edwards is on Ring of Honor with the 6-man title. You know, watching Vance Warner be one of the most over people in wrestling. Watching AJ Gray fucking kill it. My boy Stallion Rogers back on the indies, ready to show every motherfucker he's still the toughest. It's just you say it out loud and you get the reminders. It's like whenever I want to feel like weird or depressed about wrestling. You know, whereas a kid, it was like a source of escapism and joy. As an adult, it was an occupation, a passion, a hobby, an addiction. And now where I am here, you know, for a while, it was almost a burden, a reminder of my failures. And now it's a testament to seeing how much of an impact you can have on people. I feel like Mr. fucking Feeney, and it's fucking cool.
Pro Wrestling's Mr. Feeney. I think we just came up with a new T-shirt for you.
It's Fiends, dude. That's me.
Dude, I was literally about to ask you, like, who are the people you watch on the indies now, and then you just kind of like, you did that Kerry Awful thing where you thought ahead of me by like 5 steps.
It's just, I don't know. I this is the first podcast I've done in 2, 3, 4 years. I don't,
awesome. Nice.
Dude,
I feel special.
I think it was almost 2 years. It was right before I took my hiatus. And that was like, I think it'll be 2 years around October, I think, or November. But in November, anywho. But the podcast was before that. So yeah, it's crazy. Like I was miserable at a time in wrestling, and then like everything in my life just had this like, it was like there was life before and then life after. Like these like life altering things, and like growing up and responsibilities, and realizing that like punk rock in the van ain't what it's cracked up to be, and you're getting older and stuff. So, you know, it became like this like grind, this relentless grind where it's just like nonstop in the car, busy. Even when I'm not at work or not at wrestling, I'm on my phone watching wrestling, talking wrestling, sending messages, picking brains, getting match critiques back from people who I can't even believe acknowledge my, you know, existence. Yeah. You know, like I thought I was gonna like fizzle out and just be this like deal. I don't know, like originally like my intent was like to never like be signed. I just wanted to do the indie thing that all the cool ass indie guys did before me. You know what I mean? The shit that guys like Punk and Brian and AJ and Joe and Dragon and Cannon, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And so you make it this like game, like it's Pokemon or something, or like Final Fantasy, and every match is an opportunity to battle, level up. Every post match is a time to watch it endlessly, and people, you know, on the outside looking in think it's vanity, but deep down you're looking at the flaws, picking them apart meticulously, you know, and staying up, watching matches, DVRing everything that's live, being on the phone. It ate up my life. It ate up my life. It became this hustle, this job, and it took me away from the things that anchored me to the reality of like, life isn't just wrestling, and wrestling's best for me when it isn't my life. It's weird.
I got a quick question for you, man. I really want your opinion on this, because cool. The way you're talking right now, I really want to hear your opinion on this. Last 25 years, what's the most negative thing to impact wrestling?
Okay, so like this, I could probably answer. Wrestling. Wrestling's its own worst enemy and always will be its own worst enemy. It gets consumed by itself, by the fans, by the wrestlers, by the business, by the dollars, by the corporations, by the internet, by the people who are third-party vendors that make money off the commentary, off the popularity and absorption of it. You know, art is always consumed by itself in its industry that it exists in. For me, I'm sure this sounds like weird fucking psychobabble, but this is how I explain myself. And again, this is what I'm known for wrestling. I used to fucking make jokes about myself as trying to figure it out by talking to what I believe to be wrestling philosophy. You know, there's wrestling psychology, and everybody knows that. But when we start talking wrestling philosophies, now you have my attention, and I want to sit down over a cup of tea or coffee or beer. I want to know everything, the whys and hows of it. And that doesn't just stay to something like match structure, how to get over, how to sell t-shirts. It becomes why do I throw a punch this way? Why do I throw a kick this way? And now fans do that too.
Yeah.
Wrestlers are supposed to be characters. We're supposed to have gimmicks. And I've always I always admired Mick Foley for showing himself as such an awesome human all the time. And while being able to still be this vicious wrestler, it's what I strove to be, and why I pulled so many influences from him in one of my iterations of Kerry Awful during the Carnies. But now, because
I got to interrupt you because I totally get that in the introduction video that Joey made. As I was taking some notes, dude, as you were speaking, I wrote down the name Mick Foley because that's who you reminded me of.
He's just, I've never met him. I never got to meet Funk. I've met a lot of cool guys and have weird, people in an elevator moments, right, is what I like to think of them as. And Foley, for me, as a child, I remember watching Beyond the Mat. I grew up in the age of AOL discs and chat rooms and WWE keywords and stuff. And I remember their old Hotmail, dirt sheets before you could even put pictures in them. And Angle Fire and Tripod and GeoCity websites with the big book of wrestling moves and stuff. But the moment that wrestling first had that glass shattering, sobering moment is when his daughter's watching him getting domed by concussion chair shots, and she's weeping, and his wife covers her eyes, and then in the back he's talking with The Rock, and he's like, "Daddy's okay to call, right? Go see Uncle Dwayne." Oh, Stitch, you know.
Yeah.
And that was the moment I never liked Foley as a kid because Mankind scared me, and I was like, he doesn't have cool neon like DX or Jericho or Edge and Christian or Sting or Macho. Like, the fuck is this? Tom Zink had neon green, you know. So it's I saw him in the brown, but then when I saw him be that loving of an individual, I was like, holy shit. And then later in life when he's done being a fucking best-selling author, super dad, wrestler, the guy who crosses the finish line, and then it's how do you, I don't know how I couldn't empathize with that. But as a kid seeing that moment, I was just like, holy shit, I care about him as a human being, and because I care about Mick Foley as a human being from watching this movie, I'm gonna cheer my motherfucking ass off every time I see Mankind on SmackDown on Thursday on UPN, and you better goddamn believe my fucking Nielsen ratings are gonna be there. When he won the world title, I cried as a child.
Yeah.
When I see it as an adult, I still get emotional.
Yeah.
God damn. It's that's the shit Rudy, the movie's based off of. Again, Russian Dolls. Fuck, Mick Foley's so cool. If you I've tweeted a couple times with him, and I was like, that was always the hardest thing about wrestling is I'd meet all these super sick fucking people, and some of them would hit these amazing expectations. Some of them wouldn't. The people you think are pricks and the world's biggest dicks turn out to be the best. There's this whole other weird duality to worlds in wrestling. There's your life in reality, your life in wrestling, and then the characters you portray on shows. It's this fucking weird alternate universe. It's a fucking ARG in real time with real life consequences, which is a morbid thing. And I didn't even I've never compared or thought of it that way until you really go back and think about your training in wrestling. You know, your trainers tell you, they ask you questions about, you got social media? I do it with my students now. You really consider before you become a public figure in wrestling, you have a real life. You need to have a separate Facebook and a separate Instagram and a separate Twitter. Keep it in character. We can have discussions like this because there's a proper medium for it. But today people, it's just weird. Wrestling, that's part of it. That's what we're getting back to that original question. It's there used to be hard boundaries in wrestling between fans attacking wrestlers hitting them back. A fan can say or do something, crazy, and then a wrestler, since they have a platform, shouldn't defend themselves regardless. And it's hard, you know. It's because there's this like, wrestling is so addictive and it's so uncompromising in how we demand it, because wrestling is something we all love so passionately. But it's hard because it's like when people argue about art styles, when that's not even wrestling styles, it's just about like, if people argue and debate like questions, right? Like if we had a philosophy question, like on The Good Place with the train, right? If you pull this, you know, you will not die, but 5 innocent people will die. If you don't do that, you will die, but you know, your mom might die or something like that. And so people have this commentary and this dialogue about it. And when they do, you know, sometimes it can be very informative and very uplifting. And that's what you want to encourage with it. And then sometimes it's like, I remember when I first started wrestling, fans would find me on Facebook and then find whatever girl I was dating and message them and be like, Kerry Awful kiss Nick Icky. Can you believe that? And like my girlfriend at the time, she's like, what the fuck? Like, not about me and Nick kissing as a spot in a match, but like shit like that, you know? And I think that there's not a lot, I mean, because social media is so new, in the grand scheme of things, there's not a lot of like rules or limits when you're a public figure or when you're a private figure. Like, do we not have social media and only use it as an advertising tool? Do we use it as a way to genuinely connect to people? Do we owe people explanations? Do people really know me as a person because I've talked to them, you know, or they see photos of me from outside of a wrestling ring, right? And does that let them know my wife, you know, or know my family, or know my wrestling students, or my relationships with them? You know, people demand answers like I'm, you know, with these people all over the country nonstop. And that's like hard for me when I can enjoy wrestling on this like superficial level, on this level where I don't have this like Atlas fucking weight on my shoulders that's like self-imposed even. Like, it's nobody's job to do that shit. Wrestling is supposed to be a business, right? But if you really love wrestling and you really want to make it better, you put yourself out there to do the right things or to be critiqued, and not just for your wrestling performance, but for who you are, what you stand for, what you say, what you believe in, what you put your stamp on.
Yeah. So it's kind of a choice to the individual, because you want to use the social media to market yourself and put yourself out there. And then it kind of like, it's like the fine line of being the performer, and then the engagement with the fans. Because I mean, if somebody starts attacking you online, would be my natural instinct to fight back. And you know, if they call me this, I'm gonna call them that. So you kind of gotta almost have like this internal sense, dude, of like, hey man, you know, these are fans.
Well, so like for me, I don't confront anybody about anything normally, as far as like, if someone thinks I suck, well, like, you can't think I suck more than I do, motherfucker. That's fine. But it's like when people ask my opinion about something I don't know anything about, and then they're like, what did you think? It'd be like someone being like, what did you think about this match that's highly debated right now that was on at 3 a.m. last night on this mega pay-per-view in the Tokyo Dome? And it's like, I don't fucking know. I was sleeping, dog. I'll catch it on the kids, and probably like, if I can free up my life to have 4 hours or 3 hours to like do something, I'd rather watch wrestling and digest it and become better, you know, and you know, not have to worry about tweeting or analytics or how many fucking retweets I have, or being too scared of fucking speaking my mind. And it's like, I want wrestling to be interactive, but I want it to be I want wrestling to be about art and fucking telling stories and being that as like this thing. And that's why like maybe I feel weird about wrestling, because I never put like money and stuff first. But now I'm at this like point of life where it's like I almost want to have this like private life now. You know what I mean? I want to just slow down. I slowed down from the hustle. I slowed down from the rat race. And I want to be the old man on the porch watching his like metaphorical kids knock out homers on Little League. You know, in some cases, my kids knocking them out in their MLB tryouts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, when I tell people like I don't get on social media, it's true. Like I used to be someone who it was like the Matrix to me. I could look at like Twitter and Instagram and just figure out like, this guy's going to go sign with this person, I think, or this guy's watching this guy's matches, or this guy's got influenced by this. I understand that this story has a couple of different options. The logical choice is this, but I believe they'll do that to get more mileage out of it. And you start seeing wrestling as that, from not just being a wrestler, but doing stuff behind the scenes. Like I did stuff behind the scenes for Dojo Pro. I actually wasn't originally scheduled to wrestle for that show. I helped train some of the refs, and I helped do talent coordination and stuff, like behind the scenes stuff. But then you learn stuff from there, and you learn stuff from being at places, doing extra work at like Ring of Honors and stuff. And you start seeing the what really goes into producing a show, and you really go in to see how like business is done. So then when you go back to your private life and you're like hanging out on the sofa, like watching TV and like getting on Twitter, it just looks like all these weird little facets of wrestling that like dictated to you. And I don't want to do that. I don't have enough time, since I'm not trying to get signed in wrestling and I'm trying to enjoy it. The best thing I can do is like stay off it. I wish more people treated, hey, this is going to sound weird, but MJF was another guy that I used to see on the indies. I remember the first time I met him, he was down in Atlanta. He had just, I think he was mostly doing Dojo Wars at the time. He had moved to the Midwest for a good while. So I saw MJF quiet a lot, and I had some talks with him over the time. But I admire how he does wrestling. When you see his tweets, people say, MJF's this or MJF's that, but there's always that shadow of doubt that he is a character, as if he's tweeting as if he's Chandler from fucking Friends. You don't know if that's really his true beliefs or he's playing into this archetypical character he has. I strongly endorse for my students to do that now. How past independent promotions, like Ring of Honor back in the day had message boards and shit. Like wrestlers used to be in character on their live journals, like CM Punk. Like, holy shit, like how cool. Now wrestling's more so like tabloid-esque, and it's like
reality.
Yeah, it's like it's why we watch TMZ. We don't give a fuck about Fight Club. We want to know about Brad Pitt dating Angelina Jolie. And that's not the art form. That's the capitalization of it. There are important things that do need to be talked about. And I spent a lot of time and a lot of my career doing that. But since I'm not like as active, I told someone I was talking to the other day about it, someone who was asking for advice. And I said, I can't tell you, I'm not in the trenches anymore. I'm not in, one side of the country and the next side of the country the next night. I remember loops that I did where it was like PWX in North Carolina, freelance in Chicago. And then I think we ended up going to Alpha One in Canada after that, just to drive back to Tennessee, FIP in Eobor, Florida on a Friday. And then a Fed that's no longer running in New York called Tier 1 with Kurt Stallion when he just moved to St. Louis. Then he met me in Tennessee, and for, almost 72 hours, I you tell him everything on your mind that you think is that guy wants it, but I can't give advice like that anymore because I don't know what the landscape is. I don't know what the social media landscape is. I'm an old man on my porch that just wants to look at all the pretty shit passing by, smile and saying, God damn it, wrestling, world's best fucking sport, Yeah. Sorry, I'm a fucking weird guy. This is why I don't do podcasts.
No, that's awesome, dude. When you got a guy like you, we don't got to do a lot, and that's great. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they're motherfuckers sleeping right now. They're gonna be like, God damn, this monotone Ben Stein fuck talking so much on here.
No, it's great. That's what it's all about, man.
Dude, no, I could talk about wrestling with you all day. I don't know if I'm lagging like hell. It looks like I am. I hope I'm not.
You haven't lagged for me at all. You actually just refreshed here.
Yeah, you're better now than you were before.
That's what I like talking
my internet's lagging like hell. But who are some of the people? I hope I didn't miss this because my whole shit froze for like 5 minutes or 2 minutes. I don't know. Anyway, who are some of the people that are doing it right in your eyes right now, man? Like whether it be in the ring, social media.
So like I watch guys that I'm invested in, right? What I look for on social media and what I look for in promising wrestlers and what I think is like the difference maker has always been watching the people who are asking questions and what questions they're asking, watching the people who are taking the time to put the social media out, who invest in themselves. Do they go to seminars? Do they put out promos? Do they experiment? Do they evolve? My most hated two things about wrestling are about the same thing for polar opposite reasons. Example, I'm a pro wrestler. I create my comic book character that's named Kerry Awful. I make Kerry Awful my Spider-Man and take Spider-Man or Kerry Awful as he is. And I go to all these places and wrestle as him, trying to sell you on the Kerry Awful character. What looks good on a t-shirt? What's a fun catchphrase? What's a thing that people will like? Do they like the character? Do they like your wrestling? Do they like your you or whatever. But most importantly, are they watching a character that will grow and change over time? Luke Skywalker started off fucking Star Wars in the white outfit, right? And if he was still in that motherfucker by the end of Return of the Jedi, I would be pissed. He didn't see any change, no loss. I had a discussion with Hardway Heater the other night where we were talking about the merits of King's Road or whatever, and he said his opinion on it was that it's a story about loss, and I go, I could see that. Wrestling for me is about characters and their stories that interact in and around other characters and what we watch from that span. Now, characters are going to get repackaged. If you go somewhere and they change your name to fucking whatever, and you go from being a shitty, fat internet mark and knock off Samoa Joe tights, which I was, and they say, be a dog, you have to play that dog. But we're on the indies. We can make our own characters, and I want to see who's creative, who's thinking outside the box. It's like when I saw Mance, and I talked to Mance about being an old territory wrestler and how, Mance caught my eye at Ian's putting up a ring one time. He had just gotten out of training with Billy Rock, and he like came over immediately to talk to me or whatever, and I was like, hello, I'm Kerry, whatever. And he goes, sir, I would like to talk to you about Southern wrestling. I was like, oh fuck, don't call me sir. And yes, let me tell you about Southerns. And then he explained his gimmick, and I said, okay, well, I get that you do that, but like, are you putting it out there? And I talked to him because it reminded me of Terry Funk, like Texas Terry Funk, or Terry Funk going to Memphis being like, fuck you, Lawler, I'm a bad motherfucker. And then also being like having to whine off when he's, please, Mr. Lawler, get me out of this barbed wire. Mance does that stuff. I think originally when he started, a lot of people compared him to Briscoe, and I saw him and I was like, in a world where people want to be whoever the topical wrestler is at the time, whether it's like, and you see it in phases, like if Loki's really popular, all of a sudden you see a bunch of people wrestling and acting and dressing and doing promos like Loki. If Joey Janela's over, if Kenny Omega's over, it's normally whoever like the top like super indie guy is or guy on the cusp, because other guys mimic that thinking that's going to get them over, where really it's the time invested into that character, their stories, their lives, their journeys. So in a world where guys wanted to be whatever the stereotypical super indie wrestler was, I talked to Mance and it's like, be Terry Funk or like be Mance or be Stone Cold. And people had already given him ideas like that. I just stated the obvious and reinforced it. But when we'd go on trips and stuff, he would always stay up to, I was always the late night driver. In an example that stuff I want to see is the kid who wants to stay up to make sure that I don't fall asleep, but also he wants to talk the whole time and is excited the whole time to talk about 8 hours overnight while everyone else sleeps about how to make wrestling better, how to get over, or what to do. I think experimentation and commitment are two contradictory things, but they're both complementary in the goal that you have to figure out that sweet spot in wrestling. You have to brand yourself. If I want a Coca-Cola and it comes in a fucking purple can, I'm like, this isn't a Coke. I want a red can with a white stripe. If I get a Kane action figure, I want a certain fucking Kane action figure, right?
Right.
So a lot of guys on the indies will be like, well, I'll wear a Butcher this week with no kick pads, and I'll wear boots with fucking high tops, like in Don't Be a Menace to South Central while you're drinking your juice in the hood, right? When he's got the Mac 10 and the Uzi, the high top, And I watch it in locker rooms while guys do that, and it's like, well, dude, how can you expect people to give a shit when they don't even know what you're going to look like that week? And that comes down to a whole bunch of this weird chart of micro decisions. Like, do they, you can wear different colored gear if you're like Jericho or something, but like then you see him swap from like trunks to butchers every time, or long tights to fucking whatever, and it's like people can't get onto that because you look different. People they don't want you to stay exactly the same, but they want to see something that is distinguishable and that is you. And then they want to, as time goes by, they want that action figure to get older. Comic books, Peter Parker never really gets older, and unfortunately, because of pro wrestling's medium, we're confined to the fact that our characters age in real time. Unfortunately, they only exist when performance is observed. So it's like, whoa. So how do we show that? I can't wrestle every fucking day. Well, the kids who have a cell phone can take a little recording and talk about what they do when they go to the grocery store in character, or how they talk when they're fucking, filming something that's like a backstage segment. Not all wrestling promos are them talking to the camera, Mean Gene selling events. Sometimes it's these little hole in the wall moments, almost like The Office, where we see the behind the fucking door TV and back cuts and we're flies on the wall. Dan Housen and Warhorse are perfect at that. I saw them at shows like Bizarro when they first started doing it, and I just thought, holy shit, it's what you love about archetypes like Beavis and Butthead, Bill and Ted, Garth and Wayne, but they're pro wrestlers. It's like what would happen if fucking Thor from the Avengers was mixed with Ken Kabashi and then deep fried in Wayne's World met fucking this ghoulish version of fucking not Pee Wee Herman and the Monarch from fucking Venture Brothers. It's incredible. That's how you know they're making it, when you can have these like weird touchstones with pop culture but feel completely refreshed by creative process. And the guys that take the time to edit that, script that, produce that, gauge the reactions, make the changes, and then over time, it's not just that we believe these characters. You know, fuck, we watched the Cobra. The Cobra was one of the most protected finishes in the WWE. That sock went on his hand, and it fucking hit him. We saw it enough times that he could be Fez from that 70s show with Santino, but that was death. It's like Socko just fucking hitting a massive attack out of nowhere. It's fucking incredible. And in real life, he's this like badass shoot wrestler and shit too. Like, fuck.
He hit Daniel Bryan with it, and people believed he was going to win the world title.
You get it. You get it.
That's what I said to somebody that night. I was like, that's how you know that guy's fucking over. He hit the most ridiculous fucking move on the planet, and people legitimately believed he was about to win the world title with it.
We don't read comic books necessarily to watch the badass ending fight. We watch comic books for the melodrama and the stress of the school before the fight. When the X-Men are nervous and Charles is trying to tell them it's going to be okay, but deep down he's trying to convince himself, only for them to get by with Magneto. Boom, they might win the fight and Magneto is going to get arrested, but then he rips fucking Wolverine's skeleton out of his body. Well, brother, I'm in this match and we were friends, but we've got to fight over this title and we're going to do it. And so we fight, and then afterwards I hold my hand out because bygones be bygones, and just then he blasts me with a chair from behind. We care about the dramatic emphasis after this balls to the wall Michael Bay fucking performance of Speed. And we really need to be fucking giving these people, feeding these fans and these students of wrestling, that these micro moments, these interactions and character defining passings, they're options for them to explore on their own or within the continuity of the pro wrestling show or angle or whatever they're trying to generate, you know? I think that kids that do that will always succeed. That's why people like Effie succeed. AJ, without having to use strictly wrestling promos, just from how he interacts as himself as AJ online and for what he does and how he talks, is how he does that. He provides this little facet into the character of AJ Gray, or the character of Effie, or the character of Ison, or the character of Awful, or the character of the Ace Nick White, or the character of Robbie Cutthroat Miller. You know, Howard Stern wasn't really Howard Stern in his day-to-day life.
Yeah.
His character is why we watched Howard Stern. Jerry Springer clearly was not Jerry Springer in life, but we watched Jerry Springer for the character. The same reason we watch these sitcom television shows are the same reasons we get addicted to the lives of these people. The way that, I guess, like, if people are a big enough fan of something and they make a fan film of it, whether it's good or bad, I'd rather fucking spend my time watching that weird shit that's unauthorized and made out of pure passion, because those people care. And that's what I look for in young wrestlers now. Do you care? Like, people could say I didn't care because I wasn't some jacked fucking Greek god, right? I'm in the best shape of my life now. Doesn't change any reason of why people did or didn't like me. I want to see people that are wanting that knowledge. They want to figure out how to get there. The biggest deterrent to that I've realized, I don't serve anyone justice if I don't give them critique. That was instilled by me by so many people who were so important in my life. Like, taught me life lessons through wrestling that impacted me as an adult and a human being and as a man. In that, you know, overarching thing, if you generally love people or love something, you're brutally honest. Not because you're there to critique out of a malicious place. You care because you want them to be the best version of themselves. You got to find students and people that are open to critique, because it's easy. It's all easy if you really think about it. If you want to get jacked, what do? You go to the gym. If you want to get good at wrestling, what do? You can study it. That's an answer, and that's right. You can go to seminars. That's right. Can you get signed? Probably not. Well, how do you get signed? You either get really lucky or you get to the road. Do you think the best guitar player in the world right now could be playing some podunk fucking bar But if he doesn't put out his music on YouTube, if he doesn't play different bars, if he doesn't promote himself on Facebook, no one will see him. Now, maybe in some alternate Earth, you know, the head of Arista or Sony or fucking whoever stumbles in there with his buddies after a long bender at work, and they just want to unwind, and, well, you can't get work off your mind, so the guy gets signed. But really, it's fucking more mechanical. You hear about it. You know, people make music now so they can sign to a record label, and you make the album that they want. Linkin Park's a prime example of that.
Yeah.
You know, tons of punk bands, prime example of that. But you do it in hopes of getting over enough, just like in wrestling, that when you're over enough, you make whatever kind of music you want, and the fans are so invested in it for whatever reason that is, that your creativity speaks to them and they monetize it, and you can make music the way you fucking want. Sorry.
Is it almost like fake it till you make it?
Yes and no. I know, on the fence. Yes, in the sense is that you have to be dedicated. You have to fucking be honest with yourself. I overthink everything until I fucking changed. You know, like sweat through your shirt, because it's surreal. It's gods to me. You're talking about like these figures or whatever that are this like world shattering thing. And vets in the old day, and my original trainer would say they put their boots on one lace at a time. That's true. You know, I my love of wrestling masked that for me in a lot of ways. And so it's like I'd overthink stuff. And if you fake it, like I see it now, you can see people who are trying to fake it because they just don't want to piss people off, or they're like faking it because they're like want to belong. And it's like this weird tribalism thing, you know? And I think like it's hard, because if you fake it, you err to be make a mistake by being arrogant. But if you don't believe in yourself and say that, like, yeah, I am the shit. Yeah, I can be here. And yeah, I'm just as good as everybody else, or I wouldn't be in this fucking room breathing their air. Even if you know that's not the case, like it was for me every fucking time, you know, you're going to look like you don't belong. You know, wrestling is just so much more than the simplistic thing that we think that like fans just like you because you're good and an awesome wrestler. There's so many factors that play against it. The thing that you do to counteract that is put out as much content as you can, be as creative as you can, have as much fun as you can, show that you're enjoying it, make cool t-shirts, make good memories, make promos, fail at them. I hate when people don't use failure as an excuse to not do stuff, because I used to be one of those guys. I would self-justify it as procrastination or whatever. Yeah. When now, in hindsight, I had it like all the time in the world. I hate that shit. Because that, to me, like, you automatically fail if you don't fucking try. Duh. I told Nick, and I could have swore I told you from fucking damn near where I met you, I just want to see where the glass ceiling is, and I kept going through that motherfucker, my nose pressed against that ceiling, literally to this day. And I said, oh, fuck, man, I'm really high up here, way further than I got. Cool. You know? So, like, I think that, like, to paraphrase and to sum this whole thing up, wrestling right now needs people to be creative. Wrestling is escapism. So I think for wrestlers to succeed, they need to have fun and remember why you're wrestling. Straight up. Are you wrestling to get over? Or are you wrestling to make money? Are you wrestling to have fun? Or are you wrestling to make art? None of those are wrong answers. The right answer is probably a little bit of all of them, you know. But don't just wrestle to wrestle. Don't just wrestle to fucking be there. You know, I don't care if you wrestle one night a fucking week. I don't give a fuck if you wrestle four times in 3 days. I don't care. I just want people to fucking let wrestling be this thing that people can watch and escape their problems and not be the source of them. And that's what I think wrestling is a lot of these days. We get these examples and these cool things that like remind us that wrestling at its most pure can be. And AEW gives that for me a lot of the times when I watch it, and so does NXT. Watching the zany stories or the funny moments or backstage segments or cool moves. The crowd reactions is my favorite. That's why I watch wrestling now, is to watch fans just lose their fucking mind. It's like watching your favorite baseball game. It's like watching a home run when fans are bored as fuck and they're like on their phones and they're just like not giving a shit because they're in their like fourth hour of wrestling. A good example of it was I was at WWE watching one time with Kalisto and Buddy Murphy on 205 Live at the end of a SmackDown taping. I was there with Iggy and anyways, we're watching and like they're tired. The crowd's fucking exhausted and they're just like on their phone being like, what's on Instagram? Fucking this. And then Buddy, I believe it was Buddy Murphy and Callisto are just starting to go ape. I think it was Callisto. I don't think it was Ali. I'm really tired. I worked like 10 hours today, so I'm like exhausted. Fair. You know, but you see it, and then they just like they're on their phones and they hear a bump, boom, big suplex. Okay, golf clap, whatever. You know, they're mumbling, and then it's like the next thing, boom, and you know they're selling and stuff. I'm pretty sure that was the match. He did the running suplex off the apron to the outside spot, and then everyone's like phones are down. That's like the first pivotal moment of like enjoying fan reactions during a match. The next part is when they're happy and they're cheering and they're hugging. Like that's like the next rise. And then like the ultimate rise is like half the crowd is celebrating, high-fiving, pouring beers everywhere, and the other half sitting there recording that motherfucker because they want to make sure they have this bitch. They were there, you know, they experienced this cathartic, you know, 10,000 people in a stadium moment, and they all lost their fucking shit. They went from fucking boredom to the seat of their pants experiencing pro wrestling like it's 1980, 90s, fucking 2070, and it's the greatest experience of their fucking lives. And fucking they all are watching this fictitious sport about these two fictitious characters. It's like watching a gladiator response to people watching Star Wars or fucking Mortal Kombat. It's so cool. Sorry, I love wrestling for a lot of weird ways. It's the best. Wrestling's the best.
Oh my god, dude. Okay, so I'm gonna say this because I'm about to give you the full screen and let you close this out. But I gotta say this, and nobody that listens to this is gonna get this statement. Robbie's not even gonna get this statement. You will understand what I'm about to say. I haven't heard anybody talk like you. Like I've been sitting here in awe for the last hour.
Yeah.
Aside for promo.
Dude, I'm with you, Nick. Dude, I'm seriously, man. The way this guy talks about wrestling makes me want to go do it.
Like, the way that I used to sit at the learning tree with promo, I hear you talk, and like I know you and him have talked plenty, and you know y'all have had your moments, just like me and him have had moments, like me and you have had moments. But like I'm. Legit, I get emotional listening to you talk about wrestling because I love it so fucking much, and to hear somebody care about it the way you do, like it makes it. I had no hope for this sport like 3 years ago. Last year, I had no hope, and like I talked to you at the Revive show a couple months ago, having you on tonight, like there's a future to this sport, and you're fucking leading it, and that fucking.
Thank you. You know, tremendously. I don't know if I ever really saw myself crossing the finish line. Like that's what I used to call it. Was getting signed was crossing the finish line. You always talk about wrestling being a marathon and not a race. And eventually, after like so many years of running this race, and you hear all these like stories from guys like the Young Bucks or Kevin Owens, and they were like, "Yeah, I was going to quit," and these guys had like traveled the world. And they were in like the same spot I was, and so like I kept holding out for this like weird Hail Mary moment that I was gonna happen, and instead like the world provided me with tons of options to slow the fuck down and really see where the world was pushing me to. And what it did is it pushed me to a place where I had to completely lose wrestling, and I can only compare it to an addiction, right? I had to really fucking clear myself of wrestling to fall in love with it again. Over the last 2 years, while I wasn't at shows, I still had my wrestling school. And to this day, I practice the basics every time. All because of a Daniel Bryan promo video where he's talking to people in a seminar and he says, I got signed not because I could do shooting star presses, but because I could do the basics and execute them so flawlessly well.
I literally watched that fucking yesterday, bro.
Yeah,
it's not even a fucking joke either.
Well, I watched that, and I was with my students, and I was out of shape. I was unhappy. I was not sleeping. I was stressful, and it was because that stress was keeping weight on me. It's keeping this like weird, like almost like a weight in my brain and heart and lungs and chest. And so I had to go back to the basics. And I don't know, it feels like Rocky when you just like, you go from like feeling like you're going to fucking open for Metallica to being like, fuck, I I don't even know if I have enough confidence to like be on stage with an instrument with people looking at me. And so I went back, and it was one bump at a time, one suplex at a time, one top wrist lock, one back roll, one front roll. Now I'm like, get bored in class, and I've been doing Harlem Hangovers and like Whisper in the Winds, and I'm trying to do like a twisting moonsault. I almost did a 450 the other day, and I thought I was going to break my ankles out because I had boat shoes on instead of like, I love it. And I know I loved it because I love training with people like Dutch and Tasha, and stories from people like Promo, in the conversations that I had, because that's what made wrestling fun and worth living and adventuring and discovering for me. And to be able to be the person in the real world I want to be, but still live in this comic book world of pro wrestling, I had to find a happy medium, and I did it through my school. I learned through my students how to love wrestling. I do it every night. I have a group thing with my students where I ask them, if it's not a day I'm at the building because I'm at work, 1 hour a day, I allow people to talk to me about pro wrestling, and they are my students or past students or friends or people who want to learn something from me that I believe, I should invest that time in. And I have special guests in there from people who are on, signed to companies. I built this building with my friend, Mr. Stuff, a building with a ring that was owned by our Shane Smalls. That's now my ring, was with him. And I take all those like things that made my life worth living and made wrestling worth being part of, and I cherish it and try to give that to people now. I talk about pro wrestling. I used to tell people I love pro wrestling in a way that I could only describe as like the way that Thanos loved death. This endless conquest to prove my worthiness and my love to it. And instead, I love pro wrestling by celebrating it now, not chasing it. And I celebrate it because, I had nothing when I started. A lot of my guys who came to my school were people who couldn't get booked in scramble matches, that didn't know how to get to the things they wanted because no one ever showed them the way. And in a lot of those cases, a lot of people told them it would never be possible. I used to live to prove people wrong, and I know what that feeling's like. And it's a motivator. It pushes you, it drives you, and it was a reason for my success and a lot of heartache. So when I got rid of that, I can look at wrestling now and try to get these guys who were that same like weird shitty place I was, where they didn't feel like they were worth anything, like they were just fucking awful, just pieces of shit with no future, bad toys, bad kids, bad wrestlers, bad people, unredeemable. And I just want to show them that, like, through wrestling, if we celebrate it and love it, because they tell you shit like the business doesn't owe you anything, and you feel like it does at points. You feel like you sacrifice so much blood into it, like it's fucking Full Metal Alchemist, right? And you keep waiting for the rebound, but you never see it. And I realized that I was asking the business for the wrong things. The business gave me so much more. It gave me family when I didn't have it. It gave me friends when I didn't think anyone liked me. It gave me self-worth when the people used to hit guardrails or chant my name. It gave me a place to go when I was homeless. It put food in my stomach, and even the house I'm in right now, like, wrestling helped pay for on the indies to an extent. Covered mortgage payments, Good merch nights were game-changing for us. And I want that to be what people search to chase in wrestling now. Because out here, Nick will tell you, it was about make money, protect your spot, fuck them if they want to do something different. I was lucky to have people like Nick, who was like, yeah, I like Japanese wrestling, and Jablonski to be like, this is how you do an inside-out driver. Derek Neal to be like, bang, man, with the curb stomp, you got to watch out for this. Tasha beating the shit out of me, bringing in her friends to punch me in the kidneys, who are like legit some of my favorite wrestlers, for decades. It's I want that to be the fucking deal, and I want more people to talk about this side of wrestling. And it's real easy to talk about all the bad stuff, because the bad stuff seems to pile up quicker. But when shit like AEW pops off, and we're seeing this bro, AEW is like watching a what if episode of Marvel or Elseworlds DC if WCW survived and just had the best of everything. And then NXT's going back to doing these people might have disagreeing opinions, but moments are what we see in highlight videos, not necessarily big spots. The reason we see big spots is because they are moments. The spot itself is sometimes inconsequential, Like we look at weddings the same way that we remember, the Billy and Chuck wedding, the Edge and Lita wedding, go on and on and on, But anywho, I got to get off here. It's late, and as you can tell, I can talk about wrestling forever. So we'll have to wrap it up.
We can do this all fucking night, bro.
All I gotta say is, man, thank you for coming on. Thank you for opening up, dude. And thank you for, and I'll say anybody that's in your wrestling school, dude, is lucky for it, dude. Great.
Well, if they're interested in going to,
hold on, wait a minute.
This
full
is
screen, go for it.
No shit. This is the address for the Gypsy Joe Arena down in Tullahoma. We did a GCW Wombat down there. That's where my school was at. Now we're at a top secret location. The only way that you can get in is by using your phone. It's the key. If you would like to apply to Crux Wrestling School, please send a message to the Crux Wrestling Twitter or Instagram or Facebook page. All you got to do is type in Crux Wrestling and you'll find it there. Or you can get in contact with Mr. Stuff of the office with Kerry Awful, and he can actually get you set up. We got a new tryout class coming up because I do tryout classes because I don't believe that wrestling is necessarily for everyone, or maybe not necessarily what they think it is when they start. But I don't want to sign people to some stupid contracts and you're going to sign your life away to me. I want you to see if this is for you. We also host seminars all the time. That was one big thing, is bringing knowledge and good wrestlers and different viewpoints and talents to take to Tennessee. So I'm known for trying to get some really cool seminars. We got one coming up with AJ Gray. Limited spots, have to be vaccinated. Reserve only. Please message Mr. Stuff at Maxwell Classic on Twitter, or I believe Instagram as well, or Crux Wrestling for that $20 a head. Yeah, it's cool. I'm watching people that I helped out now teach the kids that I teach, and it's the best. Check out Crux Wrestling shows on IWTV because we get some money for that, and eventually we might make a return to episodic wrestling similar to Crux Tuesday Night Twitter fights. Announcements will be coming soon. And I'm going to finally get merch.
I love that should be a thing. There you go.
Oh, this is my new taunt. Like, if this was No Mercy, like before, like to get to my move, instead of doing something cool like that or that, I'm going to go. That's how I call matches. I'm going to give you that. Rock you a couple times. So, yeah, thank you for having me on. This is really nice. I'm sorry if I hijacked this podcast. I do it every time.
No, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, and that is a beautiful thing. So I had a blast. I could literally talk about wrestling with you like all fucking night, and at some point I just want to get back on StreamYard and not record it and just fucking do this.
Yeah, well,
I'm gonna have to come. I might
soon. Fuck, man.
Me and the good brother kind of want to come down to the school sometime.
Come on in, bro.
I'll hit you up.
I'm there every Tuesday night, 6:30 to 9, and then I am there Sunday mornings, and then like sometimes during the week, me or one of my co-trainers are over there wrestling. So y'all have a good night, okay?
Yeah, man. Have a good one, brother. Appreciate you.
Good to talk to you.
Y'all too. Bye.
Wow, man, we got another one in the books, man.
That was I literally, no bullshit, to talk to that guy all night, and have talked to that guy, as he said, many nights about anything and everything wrestling.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool, especially at the end. I was going to ask him, one of the things I wanted to ask him was about how he evaluates talent, and if you got somebody come in with fist in their cash in their fist, but they had not a talented bone in their body. I liked what he was talking about at the end about doing tryouts. I think that's the way it should be. You should have to have some merit to do it. You shouldn't just be able to give somebody money and then go get into a ring. Do you agree with that, Nick?
Totally. As someone who's been in a ring with people who just had money and that's how they got in a ring. Yeah. Man. The motherfucker almost made me cry twice. So fuck him for that.
It was a good show, man. Seriously, man. I love shit like that. I love hearing a guy out there and he's basically shed his soul, dude, for us, dude. I loved it. Yeah,
man. So, okay. Next week, we will be back next Thursday night, September the 23rd. With our guest.
Is this the one where I got to be on like better behavior than I usually?
You got to be on your best behavior next week because she will beat the fuck out of you.
Fair enough.
She will come to Washington and beat the absolute dog shit out of you. She can do that because she is Mickey fucking Knuckles next Thursday night on the Uncutt podcast. I'm losing my mind. I'm marking out. I mark out every week for our guests, but this one is going to be rad. Yeah, with that, this has been the Uncut Wrestling Podcast. I'm exhausted. I will talk to you guys next week. Robbie,
Take it easy, dude.
how many clicks is it?
That's 2 clicks, Nick.
1, 2, Uncut Podcast.